So November 3rd, 2021, beautiful city of Villages in Florida. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has more than 1,500 interviews, not just from the United States, but all from 21 other countries that participated in the Korean War. We are doing this for the special occasion of 70th anniversary of the breakout of the Korean War in 1950, supported by the MPVA, Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs of Republic of Korea. Main reason that we're doing this is to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been a long time ago, and we want to honor your service, but at the same time, we want to use this interview for the classroom so that teachers can use this interview to teach young generations about the legacy of the Korean War and the honorable service of our heroes, Korean War veterans. It's a great honor and pleasure to meet you, sir. Thank you for coming for the interview. Please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
My name is Marvin G. Ummel, U-M-M-E-L.
Ummel.
Ummel.
So is it like a German ethnic origins?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So your parents came from Germany?
No, my grandparents did.
Your grandparents?
Yeah.
When was it?
Oh, my goodness. That would have been in the I guess, early 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guess. My mother's side was English, and they immigrated in about the same time.
Mm. What is your birthday, sir?
March 4, 1932.
So you are now 89?
Yes.
You look very young. I don't know why the people from villages doesn't look old, you know?
Yes, got a good life.
But you have a lot of sun here that will actually impair the skin, but...
My doctor tells me whatever I'm doing, don't change.
Yeah. Don't change. Where were you born?
I was born in Arnold, Kansas.
Could you spell it?
A-R-N-O-L-D.
A-R-M...
N. N is Nancy.
A-R-N...
O-L-D.
O-L... Arnold.
Yeah.
Kansas.
Yes.
And tell me about your family background when you were growing up.
Okay.
Your parents and your siblings.
All right. I was one of 9 children.
Nine children.
Yeah, there were 5 girls and 4 boys.
Where were you in between?
I was the third from the youngest.
And what did your father do?
My father was a wheat and cattle farmer.
Cattle farmer.
Yes.
So you had an experience working with cattle.
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, more than I really wanted.
Tell me about it. Did you have a lot of chores to take care of?
Oh, yes.
Like what?
Yes, well, we, with a large family, my parents, my dad had lots of milk cows. And that meant that us boys got out of bed and we went to the barn and we milked the cows. And when some of us got finished, we'd take the milk to a little house and separate the cream. Mm. So it was in the wintertime. It wasn't very pleasant. But it was, we lived about 3-4 miles from the school, so we would then sometimes have to walk to school.
In the winter?
Yeah.
In Kansas?
Yes, yes.
Not pleasant.
It's very cold, kind of like some parts of Korea.
Yeah. And I'm from Syracuse, New York, so we are living in a very snow country,
right.
Which I love. I love cross-country ski, downhill ski. I love it, but still it's cold.
Yes.
So you know how to make cheese out of milk?
Well, really, not really. We separated the cream from the milk and took it to the depot and put it on the train, put the cream on the train, and that was some of the money we lived on for groceries.
Mm-hmm. So even though it was aftermath of the Great Depression, but you had something to eat enough, right?
Well, this was right at the end of the Depression.
Right.
And I can remember the dust storms and everything else that come. We didn't have air conditioning, so my mother would put a moist gunny sack up to the window, and that would let cool air come in, keep the dust out. It's very interesting.
Very interesting. So when did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 1949.
What was the high school name?
Arnold Union High School.
And in that school, did you learn anything about Korea?
No, not really.
Nobody taught anything about Korea, right?
No, I tell you what, it was a very small school.
How many students?
When I graduated in 1949, there were 4 in the class, myself and 3 girls. That was it.
So it was like a one school.
Yes.
And everybody sit together with the middle school students and one grade school.
That was the grade school, high school, everything was together. I don't have any idea how many. There were probably not more than 50 in the school at any one time.
And how many teachers were there?
Probably 4.
That's it.
Yes.
So you didn't know anything about Korea. You were not taught about Korea. And then after graduation, what did you do?
Well, I didn't have any money to go to college. And for myself, I just had a real basic education. And I thought it was going to be tough to go to college and have to work to pay for it. So we had a railroad went through my town. And after I got out of high school, I was working at a lumber yard, unloading lumber out of boxcars and everything. And the depot agent came out and started talking to me, and he says, "You don't want to do this all your life, do you?" And I said, "No." He said, "I tell you what," he said, "if you'll go learn how to telegraph, the Morse code, I'll see that you get a job." But he said, "You have to learn and be very proficient in the Morse code." Yeah. So I knew there was a railroad school in Omaha, Nebraska. And I had my brother next to me. He had been to college for 1 year, and he didn't want to go back to college because he didn't have no money. So when I decided I was going to go to railroad school, he said he'd go too. So we both went to Omaha. It was a 9-month school. My dad advanced us some money. And then when we got up there, I worked at a grocery store and in the daytime and went to school at night. So, but then after about 6 months, I was ready to get out and go to work. So I called my depot agent at home, and he called Pueblo. That's where he had to call, Pueblo, Colorado. And so they said, "Well, as soon as you get here, we'll put you on the train. You'll go to Pueblo." We had passenger trains. We'll go to Pueblo and we'll hire you.
Pueblo.
Yeah, Pueblo, Colorado.
Colorado.
Yes.
Yes. So you went there?
Yes.
How fast were you, the Morse code?
I could run about 60 words a minute.
60 words per minute.
That's when I was, I had good memory.
You were pretty fast.
Yeah, it was fast. But we had to take Western Union telegrams where I worked. So we had to be able to do it right.
So this is like a very interesting, this is the topic that I used to teach. It's like a telegraph internet. At the time, you were in the Morse code and you were able to chat with somebody at the other station, right?
Oh yes.
What did you chat?
Well, we would say a lot of times when a train passed my station, I'd telegraph the time that it passed, and they used that then to when they would fix the route of the train, and they knew where it was all the time. So that was part of it. That was part of my job.
Any other funny stories that you had on working on Morse code?
Well, yeah. One time I was supposed to transmit the results of a track meet, and it was a big, long sheet of paper, and I got started in that, and then my arm got so tired, and so I told them I'm going to stop and I'll come back in 10 minutes. Well, they said that wasn't good enough. This had to go out in the news, and so
right away.
Yeah. So anyhow, I finally got through it. But
how long did it take? How many hours?
About 30, 40 minutes. It was a big one, and even at that, it was tough. But anyhow,
there was the internet.
Yeah, well,
it's like an internet.
Kind of, but it was just the telephone wires.
Right.
It was not anything radio associated. It was just telegraph, and that was. We had call signs. For one call sign that I always used was NE.
NEE.
And that sounds that.
That's your name.
That was no. That was the station I was at, Tribune, and the call sign for Tribune was NE.
That's your kind of user ID.
Yeah.
How much were you paid at the time?
I think I started out. It was about. I'm trying to think. It wasn't $1 an hour.
You must be a millionaire then.
Well, when I was working at the lumberyard, it was $1 an hour. But I can't recall what a check. It wasn't very much. $25, $30 a month.
$30 a month.
Yeah.
So with $30 a month, were you able to saving? How much did you pay for house? How much did you pay for food and so on?
Rent, the house I rented was $50 a month.
50?
Yes.
50?
Yes.
But you said that you made $30 per month.
Yeah.
So you're in the debt.
I would have to do work on the side. The farmers would come in to my station, and I'd tell them if you have some work, so you need somebody to do, I'll come and do it. So that would they would take care of me there.
So you had to do extra works to live by yourself.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Only $30 per month for Morse code.
Yeah.
Did you work from 9 to 5 or what? How did it work?
It was basically 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Some at a 24-hour station, then it would be from
shift.
Yeah, in shifts.
Western Union. Okay.
Oh, that was an order of railroad telegraphers. You
Yes.
had to belong to the union.
Yes. So you knew that already Korean War broke out at the time?
Yes. In fact, I started to work for the railroad in it was January the 5th, 1950.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you knew that, and then were you drafted or enlisted?
I was drafted in January of 1952.
52.
Yes.
So you've been working for Western Union for a long time.
Yes.
And drafted to what? Army?
Well, yes. I requested the Marines because my dad was in World War I, I had a brother that was already in Korea in the Army, so I thought I'll get the Marines. But when they interviewed me got into what my history was, the officer told me, he said, "You're not going to the Marines, you're going to the Army."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You know how to telegraph, and we need telegraphers for international Morse code." So that's where I went, Camp Gordon, Georgia.
Camp Gordon.
Yes.
And did you get any extra
I'm
training?
sorry?
Did you get any extra training on Morse code?
Yes. In fact,
Why, you are already professional.
well, but Morse code was a little bit different than the international Morse. So I had to convert to the international Morse code. It's almost identical, but instead of a click and a clack, well, it's a sound. So it's just a matter of learning. It wasn't any very big problem. In fact, I caught on to it very well.
Must be, right? You already knew. It must be the best in the class, right?
Well, I don't know. That has its good and bad points. The instructor said I was working ahead of everything because I knew the Morse code. He told me that if you finish this course at your own speed, we'll probably make you a instructor here, which was fine because my girlfriend had wanted to get married before I was drafted, and I wouldn't do it because I said, if I'm going to Korea, I don't know what I'm going to be into. So,
but your friend John Turner married out of the boot camp from Paris Island in South Carolina, knowing that he's going to go to Korea.
Well, I tell you what, I told her that we'll get married when I get back, but I'm not going to have you here with a baby while I'm gone. I just won't do it. So
you're a little bit better man than John Turner. They are not afraid. But that was very wise.
Well, it was the best thing I could have done.
Yes.
Because I got home from Korea on the 19th of December in *53, and we were married the 31st of December in the same year.
There you go. So, you didn't stay there as an instructor, but you went to Korea. How did it happen? Did you want it to stay there, or did you want it to go to Korea?
Well, I didn't have any choice. They cut my orders for the Far East Command the day I graduated. So
when did you graduate?
That was in 50. That was in about July of '52.
And then, where did you depart from the United States?
From San Francisco.
Okay.
We traveled by ship then.
What do you remember the name of ship?
I tell you, it was some general, but I tell you, I had my wife passed away, and I sold my house, and I had all my stuff I wanted to keep set aside, and somehow it never did get. So all that stuff was in there.
Yep. So when did you leave from San Francisco?
Well, it was probably about the July, well, say August the 1st.
Okay.
Went to Japan.
Where? Yokosuka or Sasebo?
You know, I don't remember the name.
And then from Japan, where did you go to Korea?
Went to Incheon.
Remember when you arrived there?
Yeah, I sure do.
What is it?
We were having bad weather, and the ship couldn't. The harbor had been destroyed by the communists, so we had to disembark the ship with our duffel bag and our weapon. I went down took a rope ladder down to a landing craft, and got in the landing craft, and then went to the shore.
Do you remember when was it?
That would have been maybe say the 1st of August in '52.
So you remember I asked a question to your friend. What was it like? I mean, overall, about Korea that you saw in 1952. Describe in detail in terms of landscape, people, housing conditions, because they want to know.
Yeah. Well, when we landed and got on the shore, we were in they put us on a railroad car, and of course, being what I was used to, I didn't know if we were going to make it any place. But anyhow, we rode the railroad car to the disembarking point, and I don't remember where it was, but it was near where the first duty station was.
In Seoul?
Yeah, near Seoul.
Okay. How was Seoul?
All I could see was garbage. Really, it was just almost totally destroyed. And it was just not knowing what it was before, but it was really, really a mess. And I can't remember a building that hadn't been hit with something.
Mm-hmm. Did you see people around that city?
Not immediately, but after we got to the first duty station and got everything unpacked and got a day pass to go into Seoul, it was pretty distressing. The shops were, and people were trying to make a living, and they had a very difficult time. And one of the things that was really stuck in my mind totally was the meat market.
Meat market?
Yes. We walked by a meat market, and the meat was hanging on there, and it was, some of it was dogs. Mm-hmm. And that was something that, we didn't realize people had to live like that. And it sure made you stop and think how fortunate you were, even at home, and we didn't have anything, but we were taken care of.
Mm-hmm. They had to eat anything, because otherwise they're going to die of hunger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a miserable situation.
Yeah.
So did you stay long in Seoul, or where did you move from?
I was in Seoul, near Seoul, and I don't remember the village. It had to remember Yongdong-po or something. I don't remember what it was. Mm-hmm. But I was there probably for about 3 months, and then I was assigned with a group that was assigned to the Rock Army at another location near the 38th parallel, or near there. And I was assigned we had a system of generators there that had to be kept running. And we were just there to kind of watch it. I couldn't figure out what we were doing there other than just their bodies there and to watch it. And we had a communication system in a truck with a canopy on it, and we were in contact with the local headquarters, and so we had communication there, and we always figured that if something happened to the Army, that we would be the ones who would notify the base camp.
Mm-hmm. What was your unit?
304th Signal Operation Battalion.
Signal what?
Signal Operation Battalion.
Mm-hmm. That belongs to what division?
8th Army.
And you didn't do anything Morse code there?
Well, yeah, it was really radio teletype, but we received Morse code but it was just on the air. It wasn't for us or anything else. We spent a lot of time listening to Russian and deciphering Russian Morse code. It was just, that was something I tell you, in the facility, we didn't have much to do except sit there and take action if something happened. You know, it was one of those things, you just sit there and wait. So you figure out some other things to do.
But main duty was to interpret the Morse code of Russians.
Yeah, well, we it was there on the air, and we would copy it and try to decipher what it was.
Tell me, anything that you remember, though Russians were communicating each other? Anything you remember about the conversation among Russians?
Well, yeah, but it was more propaganda than anything else, and they would talk about the United States, and it was in English, and they'd talk about the United States. And that.
How did they talk about it?
Well, just criticizing the war effort, you know, and things like that. But it was, we didn't pay any attention to that. It was just something to keep busy doing something.
All right. What was your rank at the time?
I was private. When I graduated,
First class or private?
Yeah, just it was
PFC?
No.
Just private?
Just a private E1, I think, is what it was called. That was the lowest grade. When I got out of the telegraph school, the ranks were frozen. I was supposed to have been made a private first class, but the ranks were frozen because close after the war, this wasn't supposed to be happening. Nobody liked Korea because the war was over. And what are we doing in Korea?
So you were there when the armistice was signed, ceasefire?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yes, I
where
was.
were you? You were in the
Panmunjam
Panmunjam area, or where were you?
I was right there at the United Nations base camp. In fact, prior when...
In Panmunjam?
What?
Where was it? Panmunjam?
Well, I was in Panmunjam. I was stationed in Panmunjam for probably it was about a year or so. I had a signal unit right there, and I could walk around past the hut where they were having the negotiations, and they had Chinese guards around those buildings, and if we ever got close, they'd point a bayonet at you, tell you to get away.
But it wasn't that dangerous, right?
It was not dangerous, but we had 2 searchlights on at night that went straight up, and we were told if those searchlights ever went out, get your carbine and be ready because it's no longer a neutral point. So we could, in the daytime, if we had binoculars, we could look out and see the North Koreans restocking the bunkers with ammunition and everything. It was just, we were right in the middle of it.
Got it. What was the living condition when you served in Panmunjam area? Where did you sleep? What did you eat? What was like a daily routine?
I'll tell you what, we yeah, I got to figure out where it is.
Must be there.
Yeah, I've got, there's a little thing, and it's
What is that?
not very clear. It's when they had the prisoner of war exchange, why that was right where I was, and when they were bringing the Korean prisoners to go back north. When they left Taegu, which is where they came from, they were given all new clothes, shoes, and everything else. And by the time they got up to where the transfer point was, they would tear it all off of themselves and bloody themselves up, so to indicate that they had been treated badly.
And you saw all of those?
Yes.
What were you thinking?
It was a waste to put new clothes on them, and it was just a stupid thing. You knew that they weren't going to get anything out of it. At night, though, the locals in the area would come out and pick up all the clothes and the shoes, and I don't know what they did with them, but they had lots of clothing.
Did you see American POW coming from North Korea?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Most of them came back to us in ambulances. And they had a little hospital area set up right near at the exchange point. And doctors would then take them in and they'd get them ready to travel. So that was very heartbreaking to see some of that happening.
They spread the DDT.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes.
To kill oh my God. Fleas, lice and fleas. And how do they look, the American POW? Tell me more detail.
Well, those that were on stretchers or anything, they were closely watched and put in ambulances to take them. And I don't remember where they were taking them, but it was not either near Seoul or someplace where they had medical facilities.
How did they look? Was it terrible?
Yeah, it was very depressing. Some of them couldn't walk, getting down off of the trucks to get off. They had to have help, and it was depressing.
But there was a sign of finally release, coming to the freedom.
Yes.
Free.
Well, they were all happy that they were back, that they were there. That was tough.
What were you doing there? You are in the Signal Corps.
Yeah, we had jobs to do at the base camp, at the United Nations base camp, and we lived in tents, and we had projects to take care of. And,
what project?
It was like I'm trying to remember what all it was. We played a lot of cards because we didn't have a lot to do.
So you left Korea December of 1953.
Yeah, it was sometime November, I guess, of 53. Because we came by ship into Seattle, and then from there we had put on a train to Colorado Springs to be discharged there.
And your wife was waiting for you?
Yeah,
Not wife, but girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
Wanted to be wife.
Yeah. Well, 10 days later she was.
I had a lot of interviews with the POW who were put into prison in the Yalu River area and called Byeokdong, and many of them telling me about the moments that they were returned to the free society and all the sufferings that they had to go through in the prison camp.
Yes.
And so your interview reminds me of those interviews that I had with POWs.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really heartbreaking.
Yeah. We had vantage points. We were not involved in the exchange, but we had vantage points where we could go and watch what was happening. And that was very, very depressing. You just think how people that were captured were not treated like people. And that's just the way that's war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They were given a meal per day, usually. And they had no medical treatments.
Yeah.
People just wanted to kill themselves.
Yeah.
So many people actually suicide.
That was, yeah.
Have you been back to Korea?
Yes.
When did you go back?
In 17.
2017.
I was in that program, Revisit Korea,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a fantastic trip.
Were you
Yeah.
able to go back to the Panmunjam?
I didn't take the extra trip to do it. I wish I had of now, but I just didn't want to spend the money and the time.
Marvin, this is prime time for you to tell young Americans about the Korea you saw in 1952-53 and 2017, how drastically it changed. Tell me the detail. Don't just say it's different.
No, it's just amazing with the streets, with the housing, the office buildings. Trump had a tower over there in Seoul, and it's just fantastic. One of the biggest things of that trip for me was taking the bullet train from Seoul to Busan, 186 miles an hour, and I just that was that was the worth the trip right there. It was fantastic.
Did you go with your wife?
Yeah, well, she had passed away,
By the time.
but I took a friend with me.
Did you see Seoul?
Yes,
How was it?
very good, except at that time they didn't want us to go downtown because they were having the protests about the president.
Demonstration.
Yes, yes.
See, that's how active the democracy and civic activism in Korea right now.
Yes.
Had you ever imagined that Korea would become like this today when you left Korea in December of 1953?
No.
Why not?
Well, you had no idea what the Reconstruction would be. But watching the news and the papers and everything else after that, you could tell it was just an amazing rebuilding. And I tell you, the Chinese or the Korean people are so thankful. When we were over there on that trip, we had some parades and everything, and the little kids would run up and give you a high five, and the older people would just say they couldn't thank everybody enough. And when you hear some of the stories about when they were recovering, they turned in all of their jewelry and everything so that there was enough money to operate on. I think that is just absolutely a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It was 1997, there was Imf Crisis, and people donated their jewelry, like a gold and silver and so on, to the nation so that we were able to pay the debt.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I think that story is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. For people to give of themselves there, knowing, that there was things that meant very dear to them, but they gave it all for the nation. I think they're great people, great people.
So it was worth to go back, right?
I'd go back again.
Yeah.
But I would do things a little different then. I would make sure that took some tours and everything else. Of course, the program was very well done, and there was not very many minutes. You weren't involved in the program.
You didn't have free time.
Yeah.
So you had to stay there on your own expense if you want to do extra, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I know, I've been with them.
Have you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yes.
It's so well planned, and everything was done so well. It's just very, very appreciative.
So Marvin, you've been telling me this wonderful transformation, right? You didn't know anything about Korea. You went Korea, you saw completely destroyed Korea, poor Korea. Now you went back to Korea 2017. There are something very good and they still thanking you.
Yes.
It's a beautiful story, isn't it?
Oh, it's just it's tremendous.
But why is it forgotten then? Why is there's adjective forgotten in front of Korean War in the minds of American people? Why don't we teach more about Korean War? This beautiful story.
When I came back from Korea, there were people that didn't know I was gone. When I said, "Well, I was in Korea," they said, "Korea?" Yeah, they didn't have any idea where it was because World War II was still in their minds, and Korea didn't mean anything. And people didn't realize that Korea was just kind of an extension of World War II. Mm. And when you look at Korea's history of the persecution and everything that happened over in the past, and for them to rebound and have the attitude and the thankfulness that where they are now, I hope they can keep that.
Absolutely. You must be proud of yourself, right? Being Korean War veteran.
Well, I am.
Yeah, that's why we are doing this. We want to not just preserve your memory, but the teachers that are working with my foundation, they listen every day, every interview, and they annotate it, they metadata into it. So when you left, when you returned to Korea, and so on, and what was your unit, and what did you do in Panmunjam, International Morse Code, all these things will be put it into the database so that teachers can use it.
Yeah.
Teachers can use it. That's why we are doing this, and that's why we're making this curriculum book.
I think it's fantastic, and I think the Korean people appreciate knowing what the full story about Korea is.
Yep. We are still technically at war against North Korea, and we are still surrounded by China, Russia, Japan, and distant good neighbor America. What would you say to the Korean people in your age, considering all the things that you have done during the war? What would you say to the Korean people? Talk to camera, please.
Don't give up. Continue doing what you are, and continue fighting for the individualism that they really need and are should have. The North Korean thing, that's going to take a whole different thing.
Any other story you didn't tell me but you want to leave to this interview? Any other story that you want to tell me?
What was it?
Like, some stories in the Panmunjam service that you were there, UN Peace Camp.
Oh. The Panmunjam thing was it was kind of scary.
Why?
Most of the time, because when we would go for, several of us would go for walks around, and we'd walk around the hut and the buildings there. And of course, the guards were always sitting there with the bayonet, don't come any closer. And we'd smile at them, and they turn their head. It just...
you mean the enemy?
Yeah.
Chinese and North Koreans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just kind of interesting to well, it's kind of dumb to do it, but we tried to get them to smile, and they wouldn't do it. Because it was very interesting.
It's so absurd. Still divided, still confronted against each other, and so much waste of defense budget and so on. But what can we do?
Well, that's their training. When people are bad, that's just it.
All right, Marvin, it's been a marvelous conversation that we had together, and again, thank you for coming and telling us your story. And you happily married after you returned
Yes.
in one piece
Yes.
without any injury, and you did wonderful things, and you have observed so many different things, but you were able to witness the changes
Yeah.
from 1952 to 2017, and
Yes.
that's what we want to teach
Okay.
about legacy. That is the legacy. Look at the war that U.S. has involved since World War II. Vietnam War, war with Iraq and Afghanistan, and so many small wars. Can you name anything that actually came good out of their war experience, of American war experience, other than Korea?
I don't think there's probably a whole lot of good that you can talk about. Some of it has been just very stumbling, political. It's just you can't use that sort of operations and convince people that you're doing it right. It's just I think we have spent a lot of money for people, giving it to people that had no intentions of ever doing it like they should have.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is just sad politics, and I don't know if it'll ever stop.
Yep, politics will go forever like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. But
It seems kind of helpless sometimes for
Do
us.
do you read Bible?
Yes.
So if you look at the Bible, John, the one of the Gospel, chapter 1, 40, you know that Philip was introducing Jesus to his friend Nathanael. He
Yes.
was contemplating under the fig tree, and he said, "There is a rabbi from Nazareth." And do you know how Nathanael replied back to him, to
Yes.
Philip?
Yeah.
How did he reply?
Uh,
He said, "Rabbi from Nazareth." And Nathanael replied back to Philip. How did he reply? What did he say?
yeah. Just very few.
What good can come out of Nazareth? That's what he said.
Yeah.
So at the time, Nazareth was not really good to Jews, right? Orthodox Jew, because there was many different gods there.
Yeah.
But out of Nazareth, what came out of it? Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The country you saw in 1952 and 53 was like a Nazareth.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing good, right?
That's exactly
Nothing
right.
good.
And it's kind of a helpless situation.
Right. But out of that, now South Korea
Yeah.
came out of it.
It got fantastic.
It's just like that.
Yes.
So something very good came out of your
Yes.
service,
Yes.
your fight,
Yeah.
and U.S. involvement.
Yes.
We need to teach about this.
Yes.
That's why we are making this, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your interview will be listened by teachers and students. And thank you again for your service for
Very
Korea.
good.
I am U.S. citizen, but
Very good.
you did good job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marvin.
You bet. Thank you.
Yep.